concern. Not just like because we're languishing and in the process not leading in a number of areas where we could, but because there are people who now fear for their future. And we don't so much fear for our own future. We fear for the future of our children. We fear for the future of our children. Because we have seen a nation which allows the fate of children to depend upon the economic security and status of their parents. And as a large number of people feel their sense of economic security and their status being eroded, they wonder about the children. And so there really is a readiness to affirm a new compact, a compact that will say that the future of this child will not be determined by the zip code into which their parents had to move because they lost their home. It won't be determined by whether their parent has kept a job with good benefits. And it won't even have to be determined whether the parent has managed to save enough to send the kid to a good college. There's a new readiness to say the future of the next generation is not about parents, it's about all of us. There's a readiness. There's a kind of a frustration with the paralysis that comes with the current political process. And there's I think, a willingness to now understand that there's an important difference between politics and policy. You know, it may be good politics to find a width of difference and to aggravate it into a chasm. Because the truth is, nobody's ever won an election saying, I absolutely agree with Charlie Bruner, my opponent, but I'm just better looking. Vote for me. No, the next person who wins an election like that is going to be the first person who won that election, right? So you've got to find something that we disagree about and make it a major substantive disagreement. That might be good politics. Good policy is the other way around. What you do is you find a sliver of agreement and expand it into common ground. Because good policy requires common ground. What we have today looks very much like good politics of the bad kind, but it doesn't look very much like good policy, and it's not leading to good policy. Here in Iowa, what your governor has done by identifying this third grade literacy is found an issue that appeals both to the right and to the left, to Democrats and Republicans, to independents, because people believe kids should read. No matter what. There's nobody who will stand up and say, we don't think kids should read. Right? People believe kids should read. Now, they don't know whether it's first grade, second grade, third grade, or fourth grade. We tell them the research says fourth grade, third grade, they say, okay, we're with that. But people believe young kids should read, and they should learn to read well. There's a lot of energy and imagination being invested in STEM, this notion of science, technology, engineering, and mathematics, as the key to future leadership in the world. And usually, sometimes when I speak, I have a thing in Chinese behind me, and I just leave it there, knowing that people are trying to figure out, what is that? And then when they finally get to the question and answer, they say, what is that? And I said, oh, that's the fourth grade math test, a question from the fourth grade math test. And you know, maybe not 80%, but a majority of low-income kids in your state, confronted with that same question, that math test, it may not matter whether it's written in English, in Cleon, or Chinese. They're not going to be able to do it. And I just want you to think for a moment what we've just told this kid, because we've told ourselves, that success in science, technology, engineering, and math is the key to the future. Think about this kid getting ready to take a test. And you know, as a fourth grader, you're probably 9 or 10 years old. And you know, they've told you got some challenges in reading, but it really hasn't seemed to matter much. And then they tell you got to take this test. You begin to suspect that this might be something really important. And so you begin to pray for rain, snow. The closer the day comes, you sort of escalate now. You're praying. You know, you've discovered the power and the wonder of prayer, and you're now praying for disaster, either natural or man-made. You get to the point where you really don't care, but something should stop that test, and you know, nothing happens. You know, some prayers do go unanswered, and prayers around tests generally do, right? And you open up the test booklet, and the first thing you see is that math question. Now, I ask you, put yourself in the shoes of that ninth grader. How invested are you going to be in your schooling after that test? How willing are you going to be to play by the rules? How cooperative are you going to be in the classroom and with your teachers? What do you now think are your prospects and your future? We are growing a generation of folks. Remember, we said they may not be able to read proficiently. We didn't say they weren't smart. And they're smart enough to listen carefully to us and to know that we are making it impossible for them to have a bright future, that we're under-investing in their development. And so why should they care about us? That's what we're growing, and I think more and more Americans are beginning to realize that, and waiting for someone in some place to say enough, and waiting for someone in some place to say, we can do something about this and we can change the course. You know, here in Iowa, every 4 years, you have an opportunity to set the national debate. You have an opportunity to say to this nation, this is what this state cares about, and no matter where you go, we're going to talk with you about that, or we're going to show you what we're doing. So imagine, I had to give this Fred Rogers talk lately, and I really, Mr. Rogers has always been one of my favorites. I tried to give this talk, and it occurred to me as I was preparing for the talk that the importance of Fred Rogers was really his ability to help kids imagine a world in which they were cared for, loved, respected. Imagine a world where who they were mattered a whole lot. And what he did is by getting kids to release or unleash their imagination, he helped them develop into healthy, productive, caring adults. He helped them solve problems of every day, solve problems of dealing with their parents, solve problems with dealing with their neighbors, solve problems of dealing with anger, with grief, and even death. He understood something about the power of imagination. So suppose we use our imagination. And so suppose we imagine that in 2015, when candidates are tromping all around this state, that you had something to say and they had something to learn about what it would take to get third graders reading on grade level. And that you had programs to show and activities to get them engaged in. Could Iowa change the national conversation, inspire a new debate? I think the answer is yes. We are a federal nation, not a national government. And that's an important distinction because we are a nation of states. And practically everything outside national defense and the broad national economy, practically everything innovative we do starts in a state. And when I say starts in a state, I really do mean a state. Many of us remember welfare reform. Wisconsin, an N of 1. Now, I realize that it's now debated, but there was a time when when Governor Romney led Massachusetts into healthcare reform, and it mattered that Massachusetts did healthcare reform because it created the opportunity for the rest of the nation. Whatever side you're on that issue, whatever side you're on the welfare reform issue, we know that innovation starts in the states. We know the conversation starts in the state. And in a state, where you have perhaps the single most important person in education in the national government, in the state of Tom Harkin, you can't tell me that you cannot imagine Iowa leading and changing the conversation. That, it seems to me, is the opportunity your governor has lifted up. It's the opportunity that honors the work so many people in this state are doing. It's an opportunity consistent with the history and legacy of Iowa, and it's an opportunity you ought to seize. Thank you very much.